Tell us about your time in the military.
Okay, like I said in the other room, I started my military career as a sophomore in high school. Mm-hmm. This was during the Korean War period. When we were younger, we had an 8-year obligation. You had to sign up. If you didn't, you were drafted. So the Korean War broke out, and they took 2 of our men right out of Gardner High School. Our quarterback, Tommy Hines.
And you?
And his father was a coach here.
Oh, wow.
He was a football coach back quite a few years ago. Mm-hmm. And Ernie Hubbard. They took him right out of their senior year, and they activated him, and they went to Korea. Mm-hmm. So our parents wouldn't sign for us to quit school and join, so we convinced them to let us go in the reserves mm-hmm. at 17. And we were stationed here in Augusta, but you still had to go to school.
Right.
And we did, you'd done 2 weeks of active duty, and you'd done a weekly drill every night for 4 hours here in Augusta. So that's how I started my career, on active duty in June of '54. All right. And then after recruit training, we integrated, went into the regular Marine Corps. Mm-hmm. You just re-enlisted. And it was December the 10th was my anniversary date. Mm-hmm. And I took 3 6-year re-enlistments and plus a couple of 3 years in extensions. And after recruit training, I went to Quantico, Virginia. Mm-hmm. For a period there where we trained the officer candidates, because I was assigned to an artillery unit. And then from there, we re-enlisted, like I said, went to regular Marine Corps from there. And we were on a draft going to Korea, mm-hmm. because the Korean War had worked its way down, but we had troops there, had Marines. And then ended up, before we got there, the ship, there was 3 companies of us. We went through cold weather training, everything in Pecamenos up the mountains in California. 10 days of that, it was pretty rough. And on the way going to Korea, they announced that Charlie Company would not be going to Korea. We ended up in Japan. We formed what they called the 3rd Marine Division, because the 1st was still over there, and the 2nd was back in the States. We had 3 divisions at that time, 3 active. So I ended up on Mount Fuji. On the base of it for 13 months, sleeping in a tent.
That's
we had
crazy.
Snow from Labor Day to Memorial Day. And it was just like Maine.
That's awesome, wow. Well,
we came back, I came back to States and went back to Camp Lejeune. While I was in Japan, I worked in a brig as assistant brig warden. We had 35 prisoners, the bad boys. And then after 6 months, they transferred us. They swapped them around. They had the MPs come to the brig to work, and the brig personnel, we went to the MPs to work. So, then I became a desk sergeant in a little town of Yamanaka, which is on the base of Mount Fuji. We had, I think it was 33 bars, so to speak.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Drinking facilities.
Wow. That's awesome.
The spirits.
Yeah.
So that was my job, to keep them in line.
Right.
And,
out of trouble.
Yeah, make sure they didn't get in trouble. It was our job. Mm-hmm. I came back to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. And now I had been down to Camp Lejeune twice, so summer training in 52 and 53. So this time I came back and I was assigned again to an artillery unit. Mm-hmm. And from there, I volunteered to become a drill instructor at Parris Allen in 1957. I got interviewed in 58. I became a drill instructor at Parris Allen, and I was there until January 61. I took through several platoons as a senior. And from there, I went back to Okinawa for another 13 months tour duty with the 3rd Marine Division. And coming back from Okinawa in 62, I went back to Camp Lejeune again. Mm-hmm. That was my favorite base. From there, I was with the 10th Marines, and I ended up in Little Creek, Virginia for the summer. We had what they call a division static display. It had all kinds of weapons that the division had. Mm-hmm. And we put them out. We trained reserves, and midshipmen used to come through, and we'd give them lectures and then nomenclature of each piece of equipment we had. And went back to my base in Camp Lejeune in the end of September. And in 1962, the blockade came about, and President Kennedy with a Cuban, Castro. Right. And they had all the missiles and everything. So I went aboard ship for the Blockade. We were out there until sometime just about the middle of December. We came back off the Blockade. And then I went right back again in January. I went down to Cuba, and I spent 8 months down there with the artillery unit. We came back, and we'd go to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, to shoot the artillery, and we'd come back to Lejeune. And then again, right back in Cuba the next year. I was down there for 6 months the second time. And then my orders came in for recruiting duty. They wanted me to go back to Barris Island as a drill instructor, and I didn't want it, so I volunteered to go on recruiting duty, and this is where I ended up. I had a nice tour of duty, and Woonsocket, Rhode Island was my tour of duty. And enjoyed it very much. I became the outstanding recruiter for the year for Connecticut. I recruited the most recruits out of that little town of Woonsocket, which was a very nice community. Enjoyed it. We had civilian housing there. We rented a two-story house from the YWCA. They had a 3-acre lot, but a house on it was willed to them. So we got to rent that, which was very nice, a nice residential area. And from Woonsocket, Rhode Island, I went to Vietnam. And I don't know if you've ever watched the History Channel, but I was in the Battle of Quai Son. Quai Son was they said the fourth most significant battle in the history of the Marine Corps, because we had Delaware Woods in World War I, we had Iwo Jima in World War II, and then we had the Chosin Reservoir in Korea, in the Korean conflict. We were surrounded for 77 days. We were outnumbered 5 to 6 to 1. We only had 2,300 Marines. The base was 1 mile long and a half-mile wide. We went 10 days without any fresh water. We had just enough to survive on. We had 2 meals a day. I lost 22 pounds.
I bet.
And on the 23rd of February, it was a bad day for me. We had 1,307 rounds that came in. We had, when I say rounds, there were 82 millimeter mortar rounds, or a 122 millimeter rocket, or a 155 gun they used to shoot was Russian guns out of the Cork Mountain, and we had nothing to counteract them.
Right.
We had hardly any protection to support us, so as far as overhead protection or anything like that. Excuse me, we had sandbags and anything else that we could scrounge to protect ourselves. The only thing that we really was protected by was from the 82 millimeter mortars. The rest of the stuff, these 122 millimeter rockets were really nasty. I don't know if you've ever seen any movies, World War II, the Germans used these. They make the hair stand on your back. When they come over, they're screaming. And it's very demoralizing. It's really bad. But that's my combat experience there. I was 33 years old to see combat for the first time. Served with all these young men. I had a platoon of 32 people. I lost 13 men in my unit. On the 19th of February, my wife's brother was about 20 miles from me, and he turned 21. He was a graduate of Gardner High School, and he got killed 4 days after his 21st birthday. So I come home on emergency leave. I was supposed to escort his remains home, and never did get that. I did get home. Coming out of Quai Son, I jumped on when the planes come in, they would come in and make a circle and drop. They'd push out all of our supplies if they didn't airdrop them. And I had to stay in a foxhole till the plane turned around to start down, and you had to run from your foxhole on the airstrip to jump on the back of the tail of the C-130s. And I jumped on, and my pistol belt got hung up on the ramp. I couldn't get on, I couldn't get off. And the plane was just starting, so this crew chief, he jumped off and grabbed me, and he pushed me up in there, and then he jumped. And that's the last I see him. He hit the tarmac, and I don't know whether he got killed or not.
Wow.
He actually saved my life, really, because I would have been airborne hanging right off the back of the plane. It's weird. I think about it a lot.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine.
While I was in there, when I went back, I was in one operation for 21 days down what they call Happy Valley. I was in charge of an artillery unit. I had 6 guns down there by myself, and I had another gunny with me. We had a lot of different things happen, a lot of strange things, weird things. I mean, we used to laugh at some things, and some things it was scary. Mm-hmm. I'll admit it was scary. And I always told anybody that one of the troopers ever say he wasn't scared to die. There's something wrong with him. Stay away from him, because nobody wants to die. I don't care who you are. But, that was the second trip in Vietnam. I was aboard ship, so we went in and out of Da Nang Harbor. We didn't land. We had a battalion, what they call a battalion landing team. It had artillery, 6 artillery weapons, plus we had infantry and we had engineers, we all supporting units went in. It was a whole battalion. So we didn't go in. We just hit the waters, and then, of course, 72 is when they finally signed a peace. Mm-hmm. But coming back from Vietnam, I was very fortunate that I was selected to go to Naval ROTC training in Auburn University in Auburn, Alabama, and that was a nice tour of duty. They have 1 Marine officer and 1 Marine enlisted there, and we trained the midshipmen. I was responsible for the rifle, pistol, and the drill team, plus the color guard. Got to go to the Mardi Gras a couple of times. Oh, nice. We'd march in the parade, and then we'd have rifle matches there. That was, to me, was a very nice tour. And then from there right back to Okinawa again. Mm-hmm. And that's when we went out on a battalion landing team. Didn't spend much time in Okinawa. We'd go to Japan to shoot and back to Okinawa. We moved around a lot. Then I came back to Camp Lejeune. Mm-hmm. My poor daughters, they got to move 3 times in 13 months, and it's hard on family life. It really is. And I was at Camp Lejeune, I think, just 13 months. I moved to Lawrence, Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. I was on the instructor staff there as a first sergeant, and then I made sergeant major. And I had a choice: either retire there, or I could have stayed for 30. But I decided we were going to retire and come back so the children would have a normal life. Right. My oldest daughter, she graduated from here from Coney, and my youngest daughter graduated a few years later. She's a teacher now in Chelsea. There's a special needs, and my oldest daughter works at Walmart. Okay. So we have 3 grandsons. The middle one was born on my birthday. He went in the Marine Corps. 39 years later, he joined the Marine Corps, went in, he ate and trained and slept in the same battalion I did 39 years earlier. Wow. And born on my birthday. So he's doing very good now. And he had 2 trips to Iraq. He come back a little shaky, but we got it taken care of through the VA. There's a lot of this PTSD going on. Yeah. Other than that, now we have the 3 oldest ones. We have 2 younger grandchildren, and we have 2 great-grandchildren. So, been married, be 61 years in January. Mm-hmm. And I got a birthday coming up in March. I'll be 81. So, I've lived a pretty good life, considering. Yeah. I was very fortunate I didn't get wounded over there. I had some close calls, but I don't know. I guess the good Lord was watching over me. Yeah. Either that, I could run pretty fast, too.
Maybe a mixture of both.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next question is, when you got back home after duty, how had things changed?
Overall, ending my career?
Yep.
Well, it's kind of hard to get adjustment to civilian life when you've been on a regimentation of 17 years of age. And I mean, there's none of this to the right or left. It's straight down the middle. Yeah. And if you go to the right or left, then you're going to pay the penalties. I could not understand what was going on here in the state. Some of the things when I went to work for the Capitol Police. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was no security. People just doing what they wanted to. They'd walk in and out of the state offices building with the equipment. Nobody was accountable. Mm-hmm. I couldn't believe it. It was hard. I had to realize that I had to take off my combat gear and
Yeah.
settle down. It was. It just, when you're used to that many years. I was 41 years old when I retired.
Okay.
And it is hard to get adjusted. My oldest daughter said I was very strict. I said,
After you got out.
well, discipline-wise,
Yeah.
I said, well, it didn't hurt you.
Yeah.
You're not doing time in jail.
Right.
And I told him if I ever caught him on drugs, I'd kill him. But the reason, and that's another thing I was very hard on is drugs. My life was affected twice by it over there. A kid wanted to kill me. I looked down the barrel of a .45 pistol, and it looked like that big when you're walking towards him. I got the pistol away from the kid. I don't know to this day what caused it to happen. I know it was drugs.
Right.
It was drugs, but the tie-in doctor wouldn't admit to it. So that, plus we had a mortar section that was supposed to fire final protective fires for us when we were on line if we got hit with the enemy. And
Right.
when we found them, they were so blown out of their minds with drugs. They would have killed us if we had to use them.
Right.
So that's one thing I was very, very strict on. I helped a lot of youngsters with alcohol here in Augusta when I was with Capitol Police. I did take one young lady home, but not knock on the door. I just let her out so she could walk down the road.
Right.
I broke up a few parties up at Blaine Memorial. But I had a lot of fun while I was doing it.
Yeah.
But I tried to stress to these youngsters that doing this, you're not only endangering yourself but other people. We busted a lot of parties from Coney up there to Blaine Memorial. I mean, when that whole half moon was just full of cars.
Yeah.
But no, and Augusta Police helped me a lot with that. But it was hard.
Yeah.
Once I got adjusted. When I went to work for Digital, I started out in security. I became the plant security manager. And from there, I was fighting upper management all the time. They wouldn't listen to me on security situations. And so I went out in the manufacturing area and started in quality control and ended up in the manufacturing. I had 83 people under me, and I was running 5 businesses. And then I retired for 11 years as a senior supervisor. So
Yeah.
drove to Alaska once. I'll never do that again.
Drove
to Alaska. We've been to Hawaii. We've flown to Alaska as well. So we've done a little traveling. And now we're enjoying a family and a senior citizen life. Live right out here in Summer Haven. So.
That's wonderful. Is the time up?
Yep. So you guys are
Okay.
welcome to go up into the
All
hall.
right. Thank you so much.
Okay,
All right, so let's go in the hallway.
Okay.
We will. Right, we go in the hallway now? Or is it, are we taking pictures?